them, and with God in your life, there's really hope in them. Now, I'm sure this was a younger pastor speaking this story. Older guys wouldn't do this, no doubt. He says, 6 months after I bought my first car, the service engine light came on. And I called my dad from college. What does the service engine light mean? Can I still drive it, or do I need to fix something? And he chuckled and said it was an idiot light. It is set to trigger with the odometer mileage. You should be able to shut it off. Relieved to hear it was not urgent or an emergency, I asked, okay, how do I do that? And he said to check the owner's manual. Did so?
Check your bike.
There, shoot.
One more time, you're out.
Here we go. Sorry, for you outside, this fellow is learning how to shut off an idiot light on the car. He looked up in the owner's manual and found out how to fix or reset the check engine light. Locate the switch, press and hold till it resets. I did it and it turned off the light. I felt so proud of my accomplishment, and I turned off an idiot light. Over the course of a year in college, I actually did this 2 or 3 times. Unfortunately, the reset of an idiot light, through that, I learned an expensive lesson. The mechanic explained that the point of a service engine alert, the idiot light, is not just to reset it, but for the scheduled maintenance and engine service to be done. I gained a new appreciation for what my father's generation called an idiot light. Now, I'm not trying to issue labels, of course, but to highlight what may need to be done over the next year. Has that check engine light come on in our lives? If God has spoken, and He certainly has, what are we to carry out? And how are we to do it? In 1629, not too many of us remember that year, when the favorite wife of Indian ruler Shah Jahan died, he ordered that a magnificent tomb be built as a memorial to her. The Shah placed his wife's casket in the middle of a parcel of land, and construction of the temple immediately began, literally around the casket. But several years into the project, the Shah's grief for his wife gave way to a passion for the project. And one day, while he was surveying the site, he reportedly stumbled over a wooden box and had some workers throw it out. And it was months before he realized that his wife's casket had been destroyed. The original purpose of the memorial became lost in the details of the construction. They built the Taj Mahal, but they forgot the reason they were doing it. They forgot what their mission truly was. So we too must keep our eyes on the prize. If we don't, we'll end up not building our lives correctly. But when we keep our eyes on the finish line, our lives will be built securely in the power of God. That's seeing the end from the beginning. Now, please turn to James 1, verse 16 and following. And in it, we have some promises of God. Starting with verse 16, it says, "Do not be deceived, my beloved brothers." Now here's a promise. "Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. Now just let's pause a moment and consider, did anyone receive the perfect gift this year? Maybe there were some just good gifts given, of course. And I mean, think of the idea. I got the perfect gift. You know, we were gratified that Heidi thought to get her mom an electric blanket. We can talk to her later about why, but it was the perfect gift. It happened to be. And how good, practical, she needs it, she's frail, etc. What about you? The idea of the perfect gift. It's a beautiful thought. Now this verse actually promises that every perfect gift is from above. Isn't he just like a father that just wants to bless us, his children? He does. You know, this world can get so sideways and messed up. And we even can, you know, obviously, think wrongly of how God thinks about us. But this shows his hand that every perfect gift is from him. And he's glad to give it. He wants to bless us. It's great news. And then secondly, what does it mean that God is unchanging? That's what it says. It says, from above, from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. You know, a shadow, if there's a light and I move a little, the shadow moves. But with God, there's no shadow. There's no changing. So when it says, and remember last time Randy brought it up in Bible study, I think, just the idea of, you know, there's a line here, and there's the thought that we're saved when we're good, and oh man, I've really done bad this week. And we're under the line, and then over the line, under and over and under and over. And then God said, yeah, you're in, no, you're out, you've been bad. Isn't that totally just a worldly thought about what God would be like if we're in one day and out the next day? But that can be our thoughts. And with him, there is no changing. He's not thinking, yeah, Jen's doing pretty good. Did you see it? You know, he's not doing that. He's unchanging. I thought I better do somebody different than Don this time. You can pay me later. Anyway, so there's a promise, isn't there? There's no changing. He is love. Did you see the signboard out front? God is going to love you all year. That's a joke, right? I mean, it's going to go longer than this year. Now, we might have bad days, but let's not make God bad somehow, or changing. Let's go on. Verse 18. Of his own will, he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. Creatures, what is creature? Created, that's what it implies, that we are his creations. He made us. But he's making us twice, because we have the option when he presents himself for us to be born again. Man, I don't know, that's got to be one of the top 5 communion meditations, illustrations I've ever heard. How about you? Wasn't that awesome? This blind woman, the man gives his eyes, and then she has the choice and chooses against the love that gave her that sight. What a perfect illustration. And how about us? We have the option too, to be born, and when he's offering a new life to us, we don't have to take it. And so here in this verse, when it says, he brought us forth by the word of truth, he is helping us be born again. We are born again, and to live the new life, that we would be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. Then, next, upcoming, he then goes on to say that his children are to live a certain way. Now, is that fair if we're born again? Do we really have to do what he says, you know? Let's see what it says. Verse 19. Know this, my beloved brothers. Let every person be quick to speak, quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Therefore, put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. But be doers of the word, not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. Did you catch that? So, here he's telling us something. He who made us, he who saved us, is saying, but be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. That's possible, isn't it? I've lived that out. But he gives us new days, a new year even. This year, spiritually speaking, may be the best of our lives. I'm thinking yes. And I have a role to play. You have a role to play. We have lots of decisions throughout this year. What's that going to look like? Well, if we're doers of the word, it's going to look great. 23. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks intently at his natural face in a mirror. For he looks at himself and goes away and at once forgets what he was like. But the one who looks into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and perseveres, being no hearer who forgets, but a doer who acts, he will be blessed in his doing. If anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, this person's religion is worthless. Okay, so let me ask, when does this all kick in? When do these instructions kick in? When a person's religion is worthless? Maybe you even asked yourself, is it really necessary to bridle your tongue in order to get into heaven? And like Francis Chan, I may say, why do you ask? Right? Remember I said a few weeks ago, he said, somebody asked if you really had to be baptized to be saved. And he says, why do you ask? It's what it says. Repent and be baptized and your sins will be washed away. It's what it says. What the Word of God says. God is revealing to us what He's saying, how to live, how to be blessed, how to walk with Him in fellowship, how to have peace and joy. You know, I was struck by the singing this morning, and it's just a new day. There's trouble out there. There's bad trouble out there. Wow. And yet, He offers joy and peace and love, abounding, even in the midst of trouble. And I heard that actually from Jim and Sandy Bunch and their daughter, Misty. So Misty's son died in New York of exposure. He was out and it got too cold, and even though he's used to such a thing, somehow it got to him and he died. He froze to death. Ooh. And he was a troubled soul. He had schizophrenia or something. But they loved him and he loved them and he kept in decent contact. But this thing happened. And in the midst of that, the brother Andrew, so it's Andrew, the deceased was Josh. Andrew is the brother, and he was on the streets in Bend and doing some drugs and that. But since this all happened, it's flipped. And he's been a help and helping the mom. And anyway, and just Donnie, who was next door, and all his drug trouble, and it's flipped, and he's believing, he's strong again. He's turned back to God, and it's made this huge difference. And it can happen, the joy and the peace. And God's in the middle of all this. if we need encouragement, if we need to set our sights on the end from the beginning, we know and set for sure that God loves us and is good, and He's got good plans for this year for our lives, yours and mine. 27 finishes, it says, religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their affliction and to keep oneself unstained from the world. So what does it take to visit orphans and widows and to keep oneself unstained from the world? For one thing, it takes sacrifice. It takes, when Romans 12:2 mentions, one, to offer yourself as a living sacrifice, it's the way. It's the avenue to take. When you're looking for directions, take the street that says self-sacrifice. It's that way, the way to happiness and blessing and etc. And to sacrifice means that we might have, it means to sacrifice what might have been for what God is leading you to do. It doesn't just mean cut out all the bad stuff. I can just picture Phyllis, cutting out all the bad stuff. That's not exactly, you see, that's a good example because she's threw out all the bad stuff long ago, I imagine. She hasn't confessed anything to me lately anyway. But you see, what are we getting rid of? Well, I might want to do this, but I think God might be having me do that. That's the sacrifice. And it's no small chore, because my desires are awful strong. I feel like doing this, and how many times do I do what I feel like? Pretty often, right? How about you? And so, what are we to do? Are we going to be smart enough, etc.? Well, I think all we can do is to practice what we know and understand. Know and understand something, that's enough. I used to think there's a lot of smarter people out there than me, and I'm sure it's true. And yet, what am I to do? What I know to be right and true, right? Now, some of those smart guys figured out, if you want to get to the finish line and have this finished product, you pay attention to the end at the beginning. I want my product to look like this at the end. I want it to be such and such. So then you can every month have markers for, am I doing that and how's it going? Most plans start with the desired end in mind. So we are no different. We might have things that trip us up. One thing might be that when we look in a mirror, in this passage in Joshua, it mentioned this about someone looking into the mirror and forgetting who he was. So when we look in a mirror, do you see your new self in Christ if you've been born again? Or do you see your old self who used to live by the flesh and was unsaved? Because that lined religion where there's a line in the middle and we feel saved, unsaved, saved, unsaved. Well, that isn't God's thinking, but we have some changing to do up here about how we view ourselves. Remember, someone once said, what we think about God is the most important thing we can think about. What we know about Him, because it's so closely related to how we view ourselves, you see, is how we think about God. So many, particularly our Catholic friends, I've heard the testimony so many times of somebody, they grew up Catholic, were in church every week, all their life, and then when it came time to go to college, and boy, do I go to church or not? And he sat at home, and he waited all morning, and right after church, the priest didn't show up at the door, and he couldn't believe it. And he realized, I have a choice, and I'm free, and he never went back, he said. Now, all Catholics aren't like that. But there's something to be said for how we think about God. Is God the big principal in the sky with a ruler ready to whack us, when we disobey and get off track? He lets our circumstances whack us maybe, but He loves us and He wants the best for us. So I want to talk about this fella, an Englishman, William Carey. He was born in 1761 and died in 1834. He's known as the father of modern missions. Okay? Sounds high and lofty, right? Well, this guy was low as you get when he started. Kind of humble, like you might look around the room and see each other and think, we're humble folk. Whoever wrote this said, had there been no William Carey, it's uncertain whether there ever would have been an Adoniram Judson or Lottie Moon or Bill Wallace, other missionaries as well that we know, Heidi and I at least, from our history of missions. Carey had been called the father of modern missions movement because of his 47 plus years as a missionary in India. I mean, think about that, going to India in 1800 or before. That and the role he played as a missions apologist. So as the idea of mission work was being formed in our modern time, he had a lot to do with this. Carey was converted while working as a blacksmith's apprentice. Now that's humble, right? As a teenager, and he was baptized in 1783. He pastored a village church in Moulton, Northamptonshire, because the church was unable to financially support his family, he also worked as a grammar school teacher and a shoe cobbler. There's 3 jobs. Although Carey was mostly uneducated, there's another strike, right? He was a voracious reader who became very interested in literature about foreign lands, especially Captain James Cook, the journals that he wrote of his travels. This curiosity about other lands slowly became a spiritual concern for the salvation of foreign people. Carey increasingly mentioned unevangelized nations in his sermons and wept when he discussed those with little or no access to the gospel. Do you see how his concern, this is his natural concern. Any of you like travel? I don't know if he liked the idea of the travel part, but he was just interested. It was a natural interest. And then as he followed God and learned what God was like, and he realized these people have no one there to tell them at all, right? Reminds me of another missionary, Hudson Taylor, who was more influential in Heidi in my life. He was born about the year that William Carey died in 1830. Taylor boarded a boat for China when he was 21. And it was one of the first missionaries to go there. And after years of preaching, the first person was converted in Ningpo. I remember this. And you know what that convert asked? He asked, "How long have you had these glad tidings in your country?" And Hudson Taylor had to respond and tell the truth. "Well, for some hundreds of years." And the guy was crestfallen and said, "My father searched for the truth all his life and died without finding it." You know, we forget that souls are involved, right? And so here's Hudson Taylor, or William Carey. Because of the heart of God, these men are persuaded to go and do something. Get this, so before William Carey left, they formed the first Baptist Missionary Society. And there were 6 of them. And he and another guy couldn't contribute anything to the thing because they were so poor. And yet, how did such a thing work? It worked because someone else was involved, right? William Carey became known as the father of modern missions, and he told his churches, get this, if you will hold the ropes, I will go down to look for the lost. I don't remember ever hearing that one, but I love it. Someone was willing to do what? To sacrifice what might have been, right? He started out with only 6 supporters and ended up staying 47 years in India and setting in motion the entire modern missionary movement because of those faithful 6 partners whom he told, a famous saying that's on my desk even, says, expect great things from God and attempt great things for God. He started that. Little becomes much when we place it in the Master's hands. But that's the trick, isn't it? What are we to do? What are we to place in the Master's hands? I have this I remember hearing this, I think, in college, this illustration, and I found it again, and I hope you're encouraged by it. One day, an expert in time management was speaking to a group of business students, and to drive home a point, he used an illustration those students will never forget. And I believe it because I've never forgot it. As he stood in front of the group of high-powered overachievers, he said, okay, time for a quiz. Then he pulled out a 2-gallon, wide-mouthed pickle jar and set it on the table in front of him. Then he produced about a dozen fist-sized rocks and carefully placed them one at a time into the jar. When the jar was filled to the top and no more rocks would fit inside, he asked, "Is this jar full?" And everyone answered, "Yes." Then he said, "Really?" And he reached under the table and he pulled out a bucket of gravel, pebbles. And he dumped some of the gravel in and shook the jar, causing the pieces of gravel to work themselves down into the space between the big rocks. Then he asked the group once more, "Is the jar full?" And by this time, the class was on to him, and somebody answered, "Probably not." "Good," he replied. Then he reached under the table and brought out a bucket of sand. He started dumping the sand into the jar and went into all the spaces left between the rocks and the gravel. And once more he asked the question, "Is the jar full?" And the class shouted, "No!" Once again he said, "Good." And then he grabbed a pitcher of water and began pouring it into the jar. A lot of water went in until it filled it to the brim. Then he looked at the class and said, "What's the point of this illustration?" One eager student raised his hand and said, "The point is, no matter how full your schedule is, if you really try hard, you can always fit some more things into it." He said, "No, that's not the point." Instead, the truth this illustration teaches us is, if you don't put the big rocks in first, you'll never get them in at all. So for you and me, life can get crazy. And we get so busy with the water and with the gravel and with the sand that we have no room left for the big rocks. Now, we know the big rocks are important. I mean, can't you hear someone saying, "Someday I'll get around to what really matters when things settle down, when my finances get in order, when the kids are all grown, or when I get a better job or retire," fill in the blank, right? Someday I'll work on those big rock things, right? We agree that they're there, but the truth is, things aren't going to settle down someday. Someday is never going to come. And if you keep waiting for things to settle down, you'll never get around to doing the thing that really matters most in life, you'll never get to them. Life is like a roller coaster. It's unpredictable. You never know what's coming next. Sometimes you turn these sharp corners and think the wheels are coming off. Sometimes you go through dark tunnels where you can barely see your hand in front of you. Soon, though, you pull into the station and the ride has ended. It seems as though the ride of life just gets started and then it's over. Everyone in this room and in the cars outside are holding a 2-gallon pickle jar. Me and you and the person sitting next to you, and your jar is your life, and you only get one. We only get one shot at this, and the pandemic has perfectly positioned you and me to start connecting your life to what really matters. You see, it's at times like this that I begin to see the difference between what is urgent and what is important. Understand, the important is seldom urgent, and the urgent is seldom important. So I guess the question of the ages is, what is it that it will really matter when we get to the end of the road? What are those big rocks? Let's let Jesus answer this from Matthew 22, verse 34 and following. Matthew 22, verse 34. But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together. And one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And he said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment, and the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments depend all the law and the prophets. And so, big rock number 1 is your relationship with God, Jesus says, isn't it? Is loving God with everything you've got, with all your heart and soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. Is that happening? I want to ask you the question, how is your relationship with God on January 3rd, 2021? It's a new year. Just saying the word seems encouraging. 2021. How's your relationship with God today? Maybe you've never obeyed the gospel and surrendered your life to Christ. Or maybe God has been displaced by water or sand or gravel. Maybe today can be a time to reset. Reset. And it's not just pushing the button. It might cost a little bit. Big rock number 2 is your relationship with other people. Is loving the people that God has placed in your life, is loving them the way God loves you, loving them the way you want to be loved, happening? Is that big rock in your jar, or do you need to hit reset? Though it's difficult, this coronavirus has perfectly positioned us and conditioned us on this start of a new year to think God's thoughts. Jesus is saying number 1 and number 2. And we, with His help, can reset whatever's going on. In Psalm 61, we can pray the prayer, hear my cry, O God, listen to my prayer. From the ends of the earth I call to you. We may seem small and alone, and yet from the end of the earth He will hear us. I call as my heart grows faint. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I, it says. I love that because this psalmist is crying out to God because it's important. Let's bow in prayer. Thank you, God, for this first day, Sunday of the year when we've gathered in your name, and yet we have more life to lead. And as we look to the end, how we would want it to be from the beginning, we know we need your help. Thank you for helping us. Though it may seem hard, we will gain such benefit, of course. Thank you for helping us to reset. We have to have your supernatural power at work in us, but it's just a daily walk, step by step. Thank you for your help to this point, and thank you for what you will do, and yet mostly for meeting us where we are today. May you be glorified in our actions so that our faith is not without works. In Jesus' name we pray, and everyone said, Amen. Let's stand and sing our song of invitation, shall we?